Here we are, brothers and sisters. Here we are at the end. After a long journey, all the way from phase 1 of Classic WoW, I want to share with you my views, my challenges, my opinions, fables, and trials of playing a warrior. Yes, this video is about the class with less mystery than a slice of white bread. The class for whom the peak of magic is the enchant on their weapon, and the only class that has its loyalty card for 20% off at their local repair guy. A lot has been said about the classic WoW warrior, and yet it still inspires volumes of discussion, analysis, and adoration. Simply put, the warrior is the best class in whole of classic WoW, and it is probably the worst class too. But then again, those inclined to philosophy will know that these two extremes go hand in hand. Part 1. The obvious. The most obvious points are the ones to be addressed the earliest, for I am sure a lot of you are convinced that the warrior is the best class simply because it goes brrrr. While yes, the warrior is the strongest damage and threat in the game, that is so because of the ridiculous world buff scaling it enjoys and the incredible amounts of consumables it abuses. Still, this point is quite a strong one, and it does hold true. Being the best damage sure helps with the dominating image of the warrior, but the simple warrior has so much more to offer. If you think the warrior is just overtuned and overhyped, I am here to tell you that you are very wrong. While the warrior is the most popular class by far, that only means that on average you will encounter your typical tool of a warrior that plays the class just like you would some flavor of the month spec in retail. And that is acceptable to some, but I will tell you again, the warrior is so much more than that. Another obvious point is the particular rotation of a class, and boy, let me tell you, the warrior can sure be dynamic. A part of that dynamic we will examine in the next chapters, but just the basic rotation of hitting Bloodthirst and Whirlwind on cooldown while keeping an eye out on your rage for heroic strikes is so vastly superior to what the other classes have going on. That's what I call dynamic. Tons of fun, 10 out of 10, would recommend.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds!
Part 2. The Trinket. Now let me tell you a little story called Trinkets. Trinkets in our dear classic are probably some of the most interesting gearing options in the game, and if you don't have a bag full of them, you are probably doing something wrong. Now while we are all familiar with your nifty stopwatches and your ice reflectors, there is one more obscure one that I would like you to know about. But first, we have to get something out of the way, and that is the Diamond Flask. Turns out that in Classic, Diamond Flask is not only an absolutely insane source of damage for 1 whole minute, but its healing portion also scales with healing power, and I'm sure you've seen warriors rolling on precious healing gear for Flask set. Well, this is why. This little nifty trick enabled so many gameplay opportunities for warriors, such as solo farming, Dire Maul East, being an unkillable machine in PvP, or just straight up recovering after non-stop mob farming in Winterspring. You can imagine the endless potential when you are getting healed for 1k every 5 seconds for a whole minute. It can be quite the juicy J. And now it is time for me to preach the good word, to enlighten the unenlightened, to shine a light onto the minds of the many, to preach the gospel of of the ZG drink. Do you remember when ZG came out and we were all in there every 3 days for weeks and weeks? Do you remember always doing some stupid ass optional boss so rogues and priests can get some weird ass items? Well, maybe you remember those items were for trinkets, special class specific trinkets. And maybe you took a glance at them and didn't pay particular attention, but in there was a gem, a true diamond in the rough. Grillrek's Charm of Might. On use, it gives 30 rage with a 3-minute cooldown. Looks kinda shit at first glance, I know. Who would abandon Earthstrike, Blackhand's Breath, or even Hand of Justice for measly 30 rage? A madman, that's who. But there's one big caveat. You can use this before entering combat. Swap it out for something else and pop Blood Rage. Boom. That's an instant 45 rage right there, and the fight hasn't even started yet. Speaking as a tank, it is absolutely incredible that you can have your pot cooldown and still have the rage do Bloodthirst, Heroic Strike, and Sunder on pull. But then again, it is even more amazing how many times that turns into parry dodge. Still, I am thankful to the Lord Almighty himself that I have discovered this beauty for all the benefits and flexibility it can offer. When you think freestyling, you might think of the rogue with the sick pro plays of CC chains, well-timed vanishes, trinket swapping, and the like. Or you would think of the mage with its phenomenal kiting abilities, big burst windows, and all the different magic shenanigans. But the true king of freestyle is warrior. While yes, it is true that almost all classes can freestyle like crazy in PvP, it is the warrior who can be the most flexible in PvE. You can argue that the mage and the hunter can pull a fair bit of shenanigans with the control of the mobs attacking them, but the true king of mob control is the almighty warrior. In dungeons, you have the tools to output some of the most insane damage while retaining all of the threat for yourself too. In this regard, Cleave is your best friend. It strikes additional targets, while in turn, those targets strike at you, keeping you full of rage. Naturally, the more rage you have will transfer over to even more damage, which means even more threat. More threat means more rage, which leads into more damage, and so on. Also, a fair bit of your AoE damage will come from Whirlwind, which can proc various effects such as Thunder Fury. On the flip side, if you do get a bit overwhelmed, you do have quite a few tricks up your sleeve. Mobs giving you a big AoE? Just put on your shield and swap to defensive stance. The mitigation improvement is insane. Not enough? Well, you can press your shield block to block an upcoming attack, or just shield wall to trivialize any damage you might be taking. Oh, and did I mention disarm? Boy, is that button useful. And it only took the Death Knights of Kel'Thuzad to teach us how useful it is. And just for example, let us imagine you need to tank a whole bunch of angry little spiders. You can always lip AoE taunt. How does this work? Well, you drink your limited invulnerability potion, making you immune to physical attacks for 6 seconds, and at the same time you use Challenging Shout, forcing all nearby mobs to attack you for 6 seconds. What a funny coincidence. One more amazing button that is crucial to a warrior is the subscribe button right down there. It really helps the morale and keeps the channel going. I'm not really going to go into all the engineering stuff and consumables, since those are available to all classes, but I just wanted to point out how versatile a warrior's options truly are when it comes to freestyling in PvE. It really is a shame that the vast majority of us can't even use 3 buttons properly. And that segues nicely into part 4, the Drek. You know, we are brown boys for a reason. For each freestyling gigachad, there are at least 2 brainless zugs that never learned the defensive stance, and at least 2 more weak boys who still have a hard time fighting the urge to rend everything they see. First of all, there are the consumables. And Holy Mother of Hunter Jesus, I probably have cirrhosis of the liver considering how much of a drinking problem I have. And it is unimaginably worse if you're a tank. There is just so much shit to pop. And with all the consumables comes also the issue of world buff reliance. I mean, without world buffs, you still do really well, but with world buffs, it feels like chewing 5 gum. But not only is the warrior a poor crackhead who can barely afford his next week's fix, he also has some of the most expensive gear in the world. Not only are you addicted to that sweet elixir, you also have to snort jujus like Mr. Montana, and worst of all, you really need Arcanite. And mountains of Arcanite, I might add. 12 Arcanite for Lionheart Helm, 12 more for Annihilator, 20 for an Arcanite Reaper, only 10 for Nightfall though, but another 12 for Titanic Pants. And with an axe, you need about double what I just mentioned for all the frost resistance gear and the tier pieces. By the way, if you get both Thunder Fury bindings or the Eye of Sulfuras, you can consider yourself lucky, because now you can slave away for an even greater amount of Arcanite. As a warrior, you will farm enough Arcanite to buy out the whole country of Venezuela. Oh yeah, if you don't farm all that gear for yourself, you can be sure no one else will, because this game is allergic to dropping warrior shit. Only decent set is the one from AQ40, and thank the Lord for that. But the rest, good luck, buddy. Warrior class is the most populated with the hardest gearing in the game. Go figure. And do the woes stop here? Well, not really. Regardless of all of your potential, you still need to be healed. So if the healers are snoozing, you might just end up in dirt. That is, if they ever got the chance to heal you anyway. Because crits, crushes, and parry haste is a thing, and you will have moments of pure misery when a pissed off worm decided to summon the spirit of Wind Fury and just crit you down in 3 instant strikes. If there is one universal cosmic truth, that is that the warriors eat dirt. Now gaze upon your mighty warrior. No consumables left after that raid. Even had to borrow some, just to keep going. 25 gold and 88 silver in his bag, and he hasn't even repaired yet. But if an unfriendly breeze grazes him, his sword would shatter and turn red. Stone sharpening, juju snorting, elixir junkie is heading out to find a thorium vein so he can hope to one day find his 7th arcane crystal for those damn piss pants. This broken man who lost his world buffs on the first thrash pull, who raged at the class lead for mishandling loot, who got frustrated when he didn't get healed while off-tanking some random mob berserking through the casters, who took a mortgage on his epic mount. Yes, this shambling crackhead is the one that carries you through the raids. And for all that trouble, at least he can be top DPS. That is, if he doesn't die at start and gets a parse of 7. And this is it, folks. This is the tale of the worst best class in the whole game. You might love your mage, you might like your rogue, but trust me, brother, you don't know what classic is until you play warrior. It sure has been a masochistical journey, with a more pleasant journey lingering on the horizon. This sure is a magical game, and for all its ups and downs, I gotta tell you, I will always roll a warrior in classic. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.